All right. Well, continuing with our discussion on earnings, PNB Housing Finance's Q3 numbers, profits and NII have been above expectations. Disbursements have been a bit of a drag, and not to mention even the NPAs have risen on a sequential basis. Let's understand the quarter gone by with Sanjaya Gupta, the MD of PNB Housing Finance. Mr. Gupta, thanks so much for joining in on ET now. The profits and NII growth has been quite excellent. I mean, higher than consensus expectations. So tell us, what have been the key drivers for this growth figure?
Well, the growth driver has been the sustainability, keeping our product mix constant and maintaining the spreads on our assets. While, the interest rate volatility has been eating into spreads of the others, we were proactive right from the beginning of the year, managing our reference rate segment-wise, product-wise, vintage-wise, portfolio-wise. And as an eventuality, at the end of the 9-month period, our spreads have been constant, and we have been able to manage a good profit number.
All right, let's talk about the ALM position. In simple terms, assets are lower than liabilities of more than 6 to 12 months, the 1 year, 1 to 3 year, and the 3 to 5 year bucket. So what are the implications given the recent industry crisis, and how would you correct this negative mismatch?
So one thing is that, buckets up to 12 months is not a concern because they get filled up by CPs and short-term borrowings, and which we have been very smart. No doubt our CP constitution in our total borrowing basket has come down from 19% to about 13%. But the rollovers are happening at a very sort of a steady state. So the short-term bucket mismatches are not a concern. When it comes to 3 years bucket, please do remember that the secondary market fills in that bucket.
All right, so Mr. Gupta, we'll just have to also address Emphasis, which has been slightly sluggish today in trade. Let's go across to Rahul Dayama with the management of Emphasis.
Sure.
So firstly,
all right, that of course is the management of Emphasis talking about their Q3 numbers. The stock has in fact flattened out as we speak. But back to PNB Housing Finance, where Mr. Gupta was giving us some insights about the ALM status at this point of time. Mr. Gupta, thanks for waiting by. According to what we gather from our sources, PNB's stake sale has certainly picked up pace. So could you talk to us on the development on that front, and also what are the potential investors that are set to be in the race?
Well, I'm not running this process, so please excuse me from remarking on that or commenting on that. That PNB is running, and we are an investee company, and I know very little about where they've reached in their process. I'm being honest, I'm not aware.
In the last 2-3 months, we saw a liquidity crisis in NBFCs and housing finance companies. So what's the situation like now? And also there are concerns in the real estate sector. So do you think that, concerns in that sector could materialize into higher NPAs at the industry level?
Well, I would like to correct there, and I would say still, if you were to take sectoral NPAs, even on the wholesale book, they would be amongst the lowest if you were to take sector-wise NPAs in the country. So, because these are, projects which are getting delivered, the demand is coming up, the unabsorbed, I would say, inventory is getting absorbed. The overhang of inventory has come down from 4 years to 2.5 years approximately. And the developer community across the country, I keep going and meeting the marquee brands and the larger developers. They are all sort of focused on deliveries now, and hence the launches have been almost minimal. I would say that if the transaction velocity to credit inflow is maintained, there is nothing to worry. But yes, if the credit flow further comes down and the velocity further reduces, then obviously the transaction velocity is going to have a large impact or ramification on the performance of the portfolios across retail and across wholesale. Don't forget that retail is very much honed on to how the wholesale portfolio in real estate is performing.
Okay, and finally, I must ask you, as an industry player, what are your expectations from the RBI in terms of liquidity and change in regulatory norms? And of course, we have the budget that's around the corner. So what do you hope for in the budget from the government?
Well, I would say, from the Reserve Bank side, the bank has been, or the central bank has been doing a pretty fair job. Because we should not forget that banking only supplies about 60% of credit flow. And in the last few quarters or couple of quarters, Reserve Bank has been taking, I would say, actions or corrections which is helping banks to infuse more credit flow to NBFCs and HFCs. What we keep forgetting is the wholesale debt capital market or the NCD market, which has contracted rather significantly, and the FPIs have shied away from our country. And if the wholesale debt market doesn't start looking up, I really wonder, which supplies 40% of the credit flow to NBFCs and HFCs, how will that sort of a gap be managed or moderated? I'm more concerned on the wholesale debt market or the debt capital market or the capital debt market or the NCD market than the banking system.
Okay, Mr. Gupta, thanks so much for joining us and giving us your take on the Q3 numbers as well as the current situation in the NBFC sector. Well, unfortunately, we'll have to wrap it up on this edition of the show. It's been an earnings pack